I felt so compelled to talk about this crisis because it's one of those things where never miss an opportunity to divide wedges within the MAGA movement. Hello, friends. It's about 9:30 p.m. I should be getting prepared to take my family to Superman and IMAX, but I just felt compelled. I felt so compelled to talk about this crisis because it's one of those things where never miss an opportunity to divide wedges within the MAGA movement. Never miss an opportunity to just needle them a bit. Never miss an opportunity to add fuel to the fire. Never miss an opportunity to let your enemy destroy themselves. And in this case, I do believe that MAGA is the enemy of democracy. And something, if you've been watching me, I've been predicting for 2 weeks because I'm a masochist who spent more than 15 years following and studying the extremists in the MAGA, well, rather the Republican movement, who are now the MAGA movement. Let's be honest. This Epstein case, folks, like I said, it ain't gonna go away. I said it last week, and right now, some up to date news is that allegedly Dan Bongino, Dan Bongino, that former podcast host and conspiracy theorist, a man who was part of the Secret Service and is now the deputy director of our FBI. And if that doesn't make you throw up in your mouth, who's the director of the FBI? Kash Patel. Zero law enforcement experience. The same two men who promised retribution. Kash Patel, who has an enemies list. Kash Patel, who apparently is making agents take a lie detector test. For those who haven't followed the news, and I'm sure you will soon enough, is that for the past 10 years, folks, and I want to take this DeLorean back 10 years, right? Give you context, what I think sometimes is often missing from corporate media. The Republican base has been actively, intentionally, and deliberately radicalized by the right-wing ecosystem. And I say ecosystem because it isn't just the media, it's also the politicians. Now, I want to remind y'all, Jared said he's going to join me in a few minutes. I'll get Jared on. That'd be great. Uh, so we'll do the DeLorean timeline for those who haven't caught up. All right. First time Trump ran, if y'all remember, about 10 years ago. I'm here in Virginia, about 20 minutes from where I am. There's a pizza parlor, right, where they also play ping pong. I've been there before, actually. People have had birthday parties there. A man showed up with a gun, shows up with the gun, barges in, and says, "Where are the kids?" And everyone's like, "Yo, this is not a Wendy's, but a pizza parlor." He goes, "No, the kids." Like, what are you talking about? "Oh, the kids that Clinton and the liberals are hiding in the dungeon. I heard there's kids. I'm here to save the kids." There were no kids. Hillary Clinton and Democrats and liberals were not part of an international cabal that was sex trafficking children. But this man, who was not crazy, not insane, very lucid, went there to save the children because he sincerely thought that the libs were part of an international cabal run by the Jews, who were actually both sex predators and worshiping the devil. You think this is crazy? You obviously have not paid attention to right-wing conspiracies. QAnon, a right-wing conspiracy theorist, which the FBI, the same FBI, which, by the way, now is run by Kash Patel, said has the potential to radicalizing voters and people before the 2020 election, did just that. It radicalized folks like Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt was one of the many violent insurrectionists who came, and she was all in, folks. All in. She thought like QAnon, the sex pedophile ring, the deep state, the liberals, and they're stealing America from us and they're satanic. And she came there, and all of her messages were like she was there for a violent revolution. And she didn't pay attention to the cops, and she was part of a violent revolution, insurrection, and she was shot and killed. All right. QAnon, the deep state conspiracy, the deep state, all the people in law enforcement, right? They actually work for this cabal, this international cabal run by the Jews that is using women, LGBTQ folks, black folks, and Muslims, right, to weaken the Western civilization. And the way they're doing it in particular is they're all pedophiles and they're devil worshippers. And they're part of a sex trafficking ring. And what's worse than a pedophile, a murderous pedophile, a sex trafficker, right? So the worst of the worst, right? So think about it. Think about folks who watch right-wing media 24/7. They're being told for the last 10 years that their opposition isn't just, oh, the libs, or people who supported Biden or Harris, or people who supported Bernie Sanders, or people for abortion rights, or people who believe in climate change. No, no. These people are literally devil worshipping child predators, part of an international sex trafficking ring and a deep state conspiracy run in part by the Jews. You still with me? Everyone with me? Let me know. All right. This has radicalized people to commit violence, both on a mass scale and an individual scale, right? So what is it? What does right-wing media do? If you're not like me, thankfully you're not, you don't watch it, and you don't understand the memes and the talking points. I was talking to my friend Mehdi Hassan of Zateo. You should subscribe to him. And we were just saying, our lives are our luck in life is we can pick up on the talking points that the normies say because we see the blending of right-wing media now with mainstream media, and like we can pick up the attacks on CRT and the DEI and the attacks on woke, right? Because we spend time in the right-wing infrastructure. So I know, and I've done the research. I did this report called Fear Incorporated, The Roots of the Islamophobia Network in America that was released about 13 years ago by Center for American Progress. And all of those conspiracy theories went mainstream. And what I did in that investigative report, took me 6 months, 135 pages, it showed how these memes, these conspiracy theories are created, how they're funded, how they are then sent to grassroots groups within the right-wing circles vis-a-vis churches and nonprofit groups, how they're mainstreamed, made into national and international talking points through right-wing media, and then they literally end up as talking points, literal talking points in the mouths of politicians. Folks, I did that report 14 years ago, and I saw that same strategy rebooted for the attack on CRT, DEI, and the woke. All right. The people that I mentioned in that report with my team were so extreme that in 2012 and 2013, the Republican Party of that time had kicked them out of the Republican Party. There was one individual, though, that courted them, Steve Bannon. All right. The person who adopted many of these conspiracy theories was Stephen Miller, who was a disciple of these folks. And Stephen Miller then gets into the White House, right? He gets in through Sessions. Sessions becomes the first attorney general. Sessions was a complete freak on, wait for it, immigration, right? Spawning all these conspiracy theories about immigration. And now Stephen Miller, I would say, along with Russell Vought, the white Christian nationalist, are the two shadow presidents of this government. Now, conspiracy theories, invasion, right? They're coming, replacement, they're replacing you, the Jews, the blacks, the gays. And also, by the way, it's a deep state international cabal of Satan worshipers who are also taking children and sex trafficking children. Y'all with me? 10 years. Nonstop, 24/7, drip, 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 drip. Sometimes through the deep state conspiracy theory, sometimes through the invasion conspiracy theory, sometimes the replacement conspiracy theory. But it's all intersectional. And the core that held it together, right, was Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is in flesh the manifestation of the deep state, the replacement theory, QAnon come to life. Here is this Jewish man who gets this money, we don't know how, affiliated with this international cabal of celebrities and powerful people, politicians, right, celebs, bipartisan, left and right, and aha, Epstein and his Epstein Island, right, where all these perverted men would come and then go to this island and engage in this just villainous, just horrific child predation, right? And the people who promoted these conspiracies against the deep state were Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi. And they promise that once they come in power, they will kick out the establishment. They will cleanse the deep state. They will reveal everything. And everyone who said they're crazy, they will be proven wrong because they will release the Epstein Files. Because Joe Biden wasn't releasing the Epstein Files because he was trying to protect Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and all these Democrats. And finally, once we get in power, we're going to release the Epstein Files and we're going to lay it all open and we're going to show you the establishment is corrupt and we're going to show you that the deep state is real and exists and they're working together to advance a liberal agenda and to go against the white Christian man and replace everyone, and they're taking our children. We're going to show you. Pam Bondi, Attorney General of Florida, said, folks, I have the files on my desk. All right. You all recall, I mentioned this before, I want to mention again, that there was a show, a performance, where you had Laura Loomer and Mike Cernovich and a few other freaks come out, these right-wing freaks who now have access to the President of the United States of America. The fact that I'm saying this just is shocking. And they came out with those giant binders. Aha, look at the binders, the Epstein files. But they never showed us what was in the files. And the whole time I was watching this theater, I kept thinking to myself, and if you watch Democracy-ish and read some of our my pieces on Left Hook, you know that I've been thinking out loud, if I was Trump, I would not want to feed this beast. Because who did Jeffrey Epstein say? Hey, Jared, you're here. All right, let me get Jared in there. Who did Jeffrey Epstein say was his closest friend? Uh, Donald Trump. Who partied with Epstein? Donald Trump. Who I'm going to go 10 toes down, 100% sure is on those files. Donald Trump. So it is not in the interest of MAGA and the Trump administration. Hey, Jared, you call me in a rant. I'll finish this up.
I'm in. Friday night. Let's do it.
I'll finish this up and I'll turn it to you. Who will probably be most exposed if these Epstein files, if they exist, were revealed? Donald Trump and his cronies. And so, if you've been following me, folks, they promised their own base, whom they radicalized with this conspiratorial, perverse red meat, that they will be given answers. And then the punt. And Bondi, yeah, I might have told you about those files. Those were other files. Dan Bongino, working a real job is hard. Who would have thought? Being a deputy director is tough. I want to go work out and eat creatine and just spout conspiracy theories. But no, I defer to Cash. Cash. Oh yeah. Yep. You know what? There's no Epstein files. And by the way, that tape that somehow is missing a minute. Don't worry about that. And it's the Streisand effect, right? And then, folks, earlier this week, Donald Trump, and folks, I'm not even a conspiracy theorist, but I'm being honest with you. Seeing what's happened this week, Jared, I was like, yo, something's up, right? Because a question was asked of Pam Bondi about the Epstein files, and I believe it was New York Post. And Donald Trump, who has only taken, I think, 12 security briefings, has spent 25% of the job so far golfing, literally asks on camera what executive order he's signing, all of a sudden came to life, Jared, and said, I don't know why people care so much about this Epstein files, not that big of a deal, there's more important stuff, which to me says, what are you hiding? It's like these Streisand effects, the worst, it should be like covered in textbooks, how not to suppress a conspiracy and instead how to inflame the conspiracy. So right now, the news of the day, and I kept saying this, Jared, we haven't talked for a while. I've been saying this for like 2 weeks. I said, if there was an opposition party, I would stay on this. I would let them fight. It's not going to break them up, but I would expose the cracks and fissures. I think there's a bigger story here. I would do follow-ups. And knowing MAGA, I said, they're not going to let this one go. And you've seen it this week, folks. Roseanne has come out publicly. Tucker Carlson has come out publicly. Alex Jones has had a meltdown. This piece of shit woke comedian Andrew Schultz, just complete clown. Now all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, I voted for Trump, but what happened?" I call these guys all pieces of shit because they knew what they were doing. They're grifters, and they're all going to fail up, by the way. And now, folks, Dan Bongino just conveniently didn't come to work today, and it was reported, probably leaked in all performance, that he's given Kash Patel an ultimatum. It's either me or Pam Bondi. And I said a couple of days ago, if you all recall, one of these people, Donald Trump has to sacrifice one of them, right? So now right-wing MAGA is saying it's going to be Pam Bondi, but we don't know. But that's the latest gossip. And I was going to go see Superman in 15 minutes, but I'm such a freak, a masochist. I had to do this. I literally just texted Jared and he goes, I'm in, give me 5 minutes. With that, I yield the floor to you, Jared.
Man, I got to tell you, punting on Superman to talk about this shit.
I'm not going to punt. I'm going to go see it. But I got 15 minutes. Later.
Okay. All right. Well, I will say this, Waj. I think a lot about Donald Trump's business career, right? Which, yeah, a real businessman who couldn't make it owning a casino. And what you notice from these people is all of them have been grifters their entire life. And these grifters, particularly at this level of incompetence, they're not good at long-term things. The entire conspiracy theory that has revolved around Donald Trump and Epstein and all of that, Wash, they had to figure it out because Epstein was Trump's best friend.
Yep.
Like the two of them were out predatoring together. And they basically, he's all over this thing. We all know that the Jeffrey Epstein was not only a serial predator, we know that because of capitalism and because of the avenues of power that he was connected with tons of powerful people. And so Trump in order to get past that, they had to create every conspiracy theory in the book, including QAnon.
Yep.
QAnon was cooked up the way that it was in order to inoculate Donald Trump against the Epstein conspiracy theory. And eventually, at some point or another, anybody who has ever paid attention to anything from Breaking Bad to every genre movie ever made, crooks always end up getting caught because they can't create something real. And so what we're dealing with at this point is when all of those contradictions and lies come together. They created something to distract away from Donald Trump also being a serial predator in order to move beyond any sort of consequences. And now all of a sudden, they can't deal with it. They have power. And in the first Trump administration, what did QAnon say? Trump is on the case. The deep state. They're keeping him from doing it. Who's the deep state? Is it Pam Bondi? Like, all of a sudden now we're going to say the Pam Bondi is, and Bongino and Kash Patel, are they the deep state? And they do have these like things to go around cognitive dissonance, but at the core of it is a religious persecution type complex. The idea that there is some sort of an insidious cabal that is out there running everything. And when you actually go for it and you create an authoritarian dictatorial regime, you can't blame that anymore. It doesn't work. And so all of those contradictions that made MAGA possible in terms of like gaining power, they're all collapsing now because crooks can't create something that lasts long term. It always has to end up grinding against each other. And, who knows what heads are going to roll at this point, but this is like a major inflection point for the movement.
Yeah, this and also especially incompetent crooks. And I want to stress the incompetence of it. And another piece of news that just came out, surprise, surprise, FEMA didn't answer thousands of calls from flood survivors, documents show. 2 days after deadly Texas floods, the agency struggled to answer calls from survivors because of call center contracts that weren't extended. This is what happens when the world's dumbest, cruelest, most reckless, incompetent DUI hires fail up in positions of power due to white supremacy and greed. We've had more than 100 people killed. I have said, Danielle has said, I haven't talked to Jared in a week, that the people have died in Texas. I'm openly saying Trump administration has blood on their hands. These were preventable deaths. Christy Noem, if she wasn't busy getting collagen in her face or cosplaying and knew how to do her job, she probably could help save lives. Also, the acting director of FEMA, Politico, came out with a report earlier today. You haven't heard or seen from him in a week. In a week, folks, and this is the guy with zero experience. And the big scandal that came out last month that we tried to touch upon on our shows was FEMA officials asked him, well, what's your plan for hurricane season? And he said, we have a hurricane season? That's the people in charge. And Kash Patel, zero law enforcement experience. He's only there because, a reek. All of these are reeks now in positions of power. All of them are grifters. All of them are corrupt. None of them are competent. And voila, they create a conspiracy theory that they held up for about 10 years and now is cracking, Jared, because like you said, who controls the House? Republicans. Who controls the Senate? Republicans. Who controls the White House? Republicans. Who controls media? Republican. Yep, right-wing media dominates. Who controls the Supreme Court? Republicans. So, Jared, what excuse do they have not to release the Epstein Files to their base, which they have promised for a decade?
Well, and here's the thing about it. Not only are they ineffectual and they're incompetent, they can't even lie about it well. Pam Bondi from one week to the next is like, oh, I've got the Epstein Files on my desk. Which, listen, you and I think we're cut from the same cloth. I tried that back in high school, and that didn't work out. Like, oh yeah, my homework's back home. I'll bring it in tomorrow. Shit. Right?
Inshallah.
Like, if you were at least halfway competent, and that's the whole point, is that Trump can't have anyone competent around him. Everybody around him has to be of the same sort of deal. And we saw that during the first Trump administration. Anybody that was even a quarter competent, they were tossed out and villainized like immediately. And so what we're dealing with now is the scrubs. We're dealing with the grifters. We're dealing with not just the C team, it's the D team. And eventually what happens with that is they're not able to cook up like decent conspiracy theories.
You can't even grift competently.
And I will say, I for everyone who's like pissed off about this, take a little bit of solace from it. Take a little bit of solace of the fact that these assholes are not competent. And if we band together and if we fight against them, we will win. And if you take a look at this, they're not even able to cover up something that they've been covering up for years now. There's not, they couldn't even, I was saying about this today, Wash. I was on my run. Like, they can't even come up with fake studies to prove the things that they're lying about. If you have the controls over all levers of power and you're silenced all opposition and all experts, you should be able to do that. I don't want to give them advice. I don't want to give them free advice. But if you have control of the levers of power, you could at least author something that would give you like a little bit of something. They can't even do that. They couldn't even release a video Waj in which they altered the timestamp. At some point or another, it's like, oh, a minute's gone. What happened there? They
Don't
can't.
worry about it, though. Don't worry about it. A minute's gone, but after we fed you conspiracies for 10 years, don't worry about that minute. That just happens.
Yeah, it just happens, right? And the whole point here, and I think this is important. Waj, they don't even care to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Like, Donald Trump can't be bothered to read his intelligence reports. He doesn't like I and what I wouldn't give for the unearned confidence of Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Somebody who is intellectually incurious and lazy and stupid to think that he knows everything, and he can go out and just kind of like Bill O'Reilly, fuck it, I'll do it live.
I'll
The
do it live.
president of the United States of America. And like the fact that they're able to do this, eventually at some point or another, incompetence catches up with you. And that does give us opportunities to defeat these people because, quite frankly, they're not up to it.
They're not up to it.
The only reason they're able to do this is because decades have been spent by the wealth class paying for this thing to create all the plans. Donald Trump, is so open to corruption and the ability, and he's inherently a fascist, that they've been able to get this thing going, but they are incompetent. And the myth of competence with fascists is basically their undoing.
For those people who are concerned about me missing Superman, first of all, I appreciate it. The time is at 10:45. My family is ready. We're going to go see it in IMAX. Don't worry, I got it, but I got 5 minutes. 5 minutes a lifetime, and I'm gonna do my final spiel, but then give it to Jared because first and foremost, I want people to know the reason why they'll never ever release the files is because Donald Trump and his friends are all over it. They're never going to release it. They're all over it, folks. We've seen the video, we have the audio. So number one, you're never going to get the files. Number two, as Jared said, QAnon was created to help protect Trump against this cabal of satanic child predators, which includes you, me, Jared, and anyone who's against Trump. I'm not making that up. That has radicalized people to violence. Number three, we have seen the cracks already within 6 months. And I know people are very cynical. I'm not saying, MAGA will all of a sudden leave Trump, but there are three big cracks, three big ones. And it just happened in the past week. This Epstein crack, again, if you don't understand how deep-seated these conspiracy theories are within MAGA, consider yourself lucky. Jared and I are masochists. It's big. Heads will roll, but it won't be enough. Even if Pam Bondi is the first one to go, eventually Bongino is going to go. Just watch. Number two, the big beautiful bill from hell, the billionaire bill, -25, -45 for independence. Number three, Gallup poll that came out today on immigration. He's -30. And so I give you the final 3 minutes, Jared. If you were, say, in an opposition party, let's just say there one exists, how would you capitalize on these three stories that are all coming together this week?
Well, I'll go ahead and put a little bit of context on this as well, Wash. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that when Elon Musk got on Twitter and said that Trump is in the Epstein Files, that was also paired with him sending out polls that said, do you want me to start a new party? He realized that was the opening that he had in order to go after the schism there. And he said it very plainly, I'm going to go after a very few select races in order to sort of tilt it. That is to go ahead and create a Republican Party that is much more like libertarian and tech fascist based.
Yep.
And I think that we can learn from that what the constituencies and what the interests are, which is, what do people want right now, Waj? They want a government that works and they want reform. They want to say, and by the way, for anybody who's watching this, who's a Democrat and supports the Democratic Party, if you are going to say, well, I don't know about the Epstein Files, Bill Clinton might be on there, throw him overboard.
Anyone who's a child predator,
Anybody.
F them to the ends of the earth.
You gotta go. And that is something that we have to do is, and I kind of hesitate to say this word, but we have to purify ourselves from this. You cannot create partnerships and allyships with the people who do these things. And I don't care who it is. A lot of the powerful and a lot of the wealthy have been involved in this. That's why the files won't be released at the end of the day. But it does spur people. Why, Waj? Because you feel it.
Yep.
When you see this and you see all of the people who are around Epstein, the money, the power that he had that he never earned, you have to understand that he was involved as a cog in something larger. And so it's not just going after the people who are on the Epstein list, it's the people who have taken the money. It's the people who have made the votes. It's the people who have betrayed our trust when it comes to representation. We have to create something that people believe in, and we have to believe in something that will actually reform the massive amounts of corruption and hurt that's been caused.
Amen. Jared, thanks for being a trooper. I thank you all for joining us. If I didn't have to go see Superman, Jared and I could rap for another 20 minutes, but we'll extend this. I haven't talked to him for a while, so I'll give you a proper
I got a
invite next
question.
week.
I got a
Yes.
question. Are you excited about the dog? Are you excited about crypto?
I'm excited about Superman. I'm excited about crypto. I'm excited that James Gunn went 10 toes down and said that he's an immigrant. I'm excited that it's pissing off all the right people. I'm excited that the audience meter is 95%. I'm excited that it's making a lot of money, even though I couldn't care less about Warner Brothers. But I love the fact that it's pissing off all the right people. And I do think, and people might mock me for this, but I also spend a lot of time with pop culture. And Andrew Breitbart, who was the mentor of Steve Bannon, said that politics is downstream from culture.
From culture.
And if Superman and what Superman represents, even though we're not going to see any money, it's all going to be Warner Brothers. Who gives a shit? But pop culture both reflects the politics and sentiment of society, and also shapes it. If you see Superman taking off, a man who's rooted in kindness and empathy and decency, and that takes off with a global resistance to fascism and the worst people on Earth, and Superman is a refugee sent to Earth, taken care of by Rust Belt Americans with American values, who takes on an evil billionaire wannabe fascist for the sake of the masses. Jared, I'm saying pop culture reflects and sometimes informs society. Andor, Squid Games, Superman.
It's there.
Up and away.
It's there. Well, enjoy, my friend. I hope it's fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming on the last second. Take care, everyone.